Syd Barnes. And he's come all the way from England. He has a really powerful story to tell of how he cured himself of neck cancer. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
And you did it naturally.
I did go through the conventional route of chemotherapy and radiotherapy, but I realised that to give myself a better chance of survival, then I had to take the natural route by juicing and supplements.
You want to just describe what your life was like before you had cancer and things?
Yeah, I was at the top of the mountain, really. I was in heaven. I was living in Laos, a tropical paradise. I was working on a hydropower project, good money, married to a beautiful lady, and bought a house cash, a car cash. Everything was hunky-dory. Then went for an MRI scan and they found a tumour in my neck. So things crashed straight down to the pits of hell.
How old were you?
I was 55.
55.
Yep.
Okay. So what did you do then? What's the first thing you did?
The first thing I decided to do was return to the UK. And so I had to get visas for my wife, who was from Laos, and my son, who had a Laotian passport, and my other son, who had a British passport. So we went to Bangkok, and my intention was for us all to come back together, but I got so ill, I decided to move first, and I flew back and got straight back to the UK.
So you had scans and things like that done, or you done all that in Laos already?
In Thailand, I had an MRI scan, and I opened the envelope and they found a massive tumour in my neck, so I decided to get back to the UK.
So what did the doctors do then when you arrived to the UK?
I went to my local doctor, and he arranged an appointment for me in 3 weeks with an ENT specialist. So I said, no way that's happening, so I went straight to A&E, and they arranged an appointment in 3 days.
What did the doctors provide for you then? What did they say?
We had an MRI and they told me to go for a biopsy. When I came round, the surgeon said, I'm very sorry, it's very advanced, it's malignant, and it's stage 4. Then I arranged to see the oncologist, who said it's inoperable because to operate, they'd have to cut half my face off. I said, well, that may improve my looks, but it's not going to help with my chances of survival because it'd kill me. So the only route they recommended was the conventional chemotherapy and radiotherapy. I was just in shock and full of fear. Okay, let's go down that road. I couldn't think of another route to do. Before having the chemotherapy, they had to fix a PICC line, which is where they cut your arm and then push a tube up your arm around your shoulder down to your heart, so it can get the poisons into your body to shrink the tumour. Unfortunately, it kills all the other cells and gives your immune system a proper kicking. So I was waiting there for that to happen, and the nurse looked rather nervous. So I said, are you all right, love? She said, well, to be honest, I've never done this procedure before, so that put me on edge. That put me on edge, to be sure. It did hurt, but went through with it. When the chemotherapy happened, it was quite boring, really. I just went into a room, they fixed 3 kinds of drugs, took 6 hours. I remember reading the Lancashire Life magazine and looking at big houses, huge mansions, and I thought, wow, if I win the lottery, I'll get one of those. Until I realised, hang on, that my next place of abode's a wooden box. So it was like, wow. So I went home, everything was hunky-dory, felt great, and had a heavenly sleep and woke up in hell. My head was all over the place, I was vomiting, throwing up, I was poisoned. They fixed the glass pump on me to continue pumping the poison into me for 5 days. It was full on, and it was just a nightmare. My head was all over the place, and every day a district nurse would come around injecting me with different huge injections, fluids, and I couldn't wait for the pump to be taken off. And that day came, she came round, she gave me the injections and the drugs, and then the pump was being taken off, and I was like, yes, thank God, thank Allah, thank Buddha, I chanted, and she took it off, and then she said, it will get worse now. And I went, oh no. and it got worse. My whole body just bang, and I ended up having to be taken to A&E, and I'd lost like three stone in a week. I was so weak. I got a taxi to the hospital. My wife pushed me in my bag of bones in a wheelchair, and they admitted me immediately. They just fixed me up with drips and drugs and liquids, and I was dying. I knew I was dying, and I was fighting for my life.
Okay, so how long did the chemotherapy then go on for?
Well, then I went to see the oncologist again, and he said, well, we'll give you because it was, the original plan was 3 sessions of chemotherapy. That was the first. The second session, he said, we'll give you a lower dosage and try again with different drugs. And I didn't know any other way, so I said, okay, let's go for it. And unfortunately, exactly the same thing happened again. I was ill, I was admitted to A&E. I was throwing up, I couldn't walk, I had to use a frame to walk, I was that ill. So as I was recovering from the second bout of chemotherapy, they wheeled me down, they took me down in a wheelchair to this room, and I looked around, and everybody looked as if they were close to death. And I thought, well, I must be close to death as well. And what they decided to do was put a peg tube into my stomach so I could feed myself once I couldn't eat. And that was horrendous. I had 2 people fighting with a tube and a camera down, and a surgeon cut a hole in my stomach. I could feel everything as it cut through, it's there. And fixed the tube there, and I was panicking and sweating, but I didn't have a choice really, I didn't know. And then obviously went back to the bed, and then eventually was released again, and was told to make another appointment with the oncologist in 2 weeks, which I did, and he just said, sorry, no more chemotherapy, your body can't take it. It can't take it, it'll kill you, you can't have any more. So I said, okay, what happens next? He said, we'll give you radiotherapy, we'll burn the tumour, and a very minute dosage of chemo once a week, and that'll last for 6 weeks. During this time, what I'd been doing, I'd been researching on what could I do to help my chances of survival, which looked pretty slim, the chances of survival. So I was juicing raw vegetables and juices and herbs, and taking supplements and doing everything I could, cutting out sugar. Obviously, I've been a vegetarian all my life, but an unhealthy vegetarian. Chip butties, 4 cheese pizzas, blue cheese on toast, blue Stilton. So I cut out the dairy once I realised the danger of dairy as well, for clogging the lymph system. So that's what I did. So I went for the chemotherapy. Not the chemotherapy, the radiotherapy. And first, it's probably the worst place to have radiotherapy, because it's where you're eating and breathing. First, they lie you down, and then they mould a mask to you, and it's hot molten, and they lie you down. And once that's moulded, once you go for your radiotherapy, they clamp you so you can't move, and the machine will move around zapping, but you can hardly breathe, and it's really horrible, and it's claustrophobic, and I'm a potholer. I'm not claustrophobic, but it was terrible. Each session lasted about 20 minutes. All I could do was just sort of like focus on my wife and children. Thought, well, that's the way. I'll just focus on and get through it. The first 4 weeks were all right. Just boring. An ambulance would come every day, take me to Preston and back. After that, then the nightmare began. It started burning and blistering, and it was scarred and red. It was very, very painful. I was on full-on morphine, and I couldn't eat, so I'm having to feed myself liquid through a tube in my stomach to stay alive. So eventually, I realised my only chance of staying alive was to go the natural way. So I went to the local herbalist, got herbal tonics with everything to build up my immune system, and my objective was to keep an alkaline body, to help to keep an environment where the cancer couldn't return. I mean, I think the chemo was it shrunk the tumour, it's gone. So, but unfortunately, chemo's a poison, and it'll poison elsewhere, and if you're not careful, then it'll return in another place more aggressively, which usually happens. So
how long has it been since you were finished with your treatment?
the treatment finished the 1st of August 2012. So I'm still alive now, and it's nearly Christmas 2015. So that's quite cool.
So who were the people that you discovered online then that you're researching?
One of them was canceractive.com, I don't know if you know them. That's like a rainbow diet. It's by a guy called Chris Wollums, whose daughter died of brain cancer. And he recommends like the alkaline and cutting out sugar, no meat, and lots of herbs. And the other one was his book, Everything You Need to Know to Beat Cancer.
Is that the same guy?
Same guy. So that is an amazing book, and I obviously looked at everywhere, and I did look at Dr. Morse, who also recommends lots of herbal tonics as well. So those were the two major people.
How are you feeling now?
All right, don't feel too bad, yeah. A lot better than I felt before, I can assure you. And so I found that if you do get cancer, even though it seems impossible, that there are ways to improve your chances of survival.
And what would you recommend for people who get the diagnosis of, cancer, and like, what would you tell them to go for chemotherapy and radiation, or recommend that?
If I could go back, I wouldn't have had the radiation, because that's left me. I can hardly eat any solid food, so I'm only on soups and liquids. Get lots of pain, and chemotherapy. I would tell anyone to look first at an alternative route. I wouldn't say don't consider chemotherapy. That would be my first reaction, but I wouldn't like to do that and have someone make a mistake. But in all honesty now, I would have taken a natural route. Even though the chemotherapy did shrink the tumour, although obviously the cancer stem cells are still in the blood, and the chemotherapy is a poison, and it hammers everywhere else. So I would say firstly have a good look at maybe the Gerson therapy, Dr. Morse. Definitely read Chris Wollums' books, because he gives all information on chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and other methods as well.
And you've written a book about your whole experience.
I have. It's called The Life and Death of Psycho Syd. So this is the book that I'm writing, and it's one of the rawest, most haunting tales you'll ever read. It's done in pure, full-on Mancunian humour, and you will not believe it. Not only did I fight the cancer, which was the physical, I had everything you could possibly imagine go wrong. My mum died just a few weeks after the cancer treatment finished. My wife ran off and left me. She screamed, "I'm not your wife anymore. The cancer's made you so ugly." She called me Ghostface and left with another man. Not only did she leave, she left me with 2 children as well. Joe was only 3 at the time, and I couldn't eat. I had to feed myself through a tube, with the fear of only having 3 months left to live, and getting ready for school, cook for him, and fight. Maybe that's why I'm still here now, because he had no one else. It's one hell of a tale, and it's really kicking off. Lots of people are pre-ordering, so go for it. It'll blow your mind.
What was your inspiration behind writing your book?
It's such a remarkable tale that will inspire people. So I've written the book for a couple of reasons, really. I raise money for 6 good causes with the book. I don't make any money out of the first 1,000. Hopefully, if it takes off, and it seems to be going very well at the moment, then that could give an escape for myself and my children to have some kind of employment, get me off benefits and have a little bit more money, because, at the moment, life is tough.
What's this tattoo all about?
Well, this tattoo is from a rock band called King Crimson. In the 70s, they released an album called Court of the Crimson King, and it's obviously quite a horrific picture. So I just thought I'd get this as my first tattoo to remind, and I call it chemo radiotherapy. So I always remember the horrors I went through and how lucky I am to be alive. I try to live in the present moment and by facing death and having a chat with the Grim Reaper, it shows me that how precious life is and that we should try to enjoy every magical moment and realise that we die one day. So let's try and achieve what we can before we do die.